This is Jeff Chrisman, and I'm on the Inspiring Conversations podcast, and I'm very happy to be here today with my co-host, Laura Hensley. Laura, it's good to see you today. Thanks for being here.
Hi, it's good to be here. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, and we're actually visiting today with Aleecia Delozier. Aleecia, thanks so much for
Ah,
being with us.
yeah, of course.
Yeah, and what I thought I would do is definitely looking forward to learning more about you, and I believe that Laura was going to start things off as she has several different things to speak with you about. So I'll turn it over to her.
All right, let's go.
Yeah, well, first, thank you again, Aleecia, for being here. I was so excited to get to interview you. You're one of my, don't tell anyone else, one of my favorite people from college, of course.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I'll let you go in and tell people how we met, but I have such good vibes and good feelings around you every time. So I was really excited to get to interview you and share about your life. So if you want to go ahead and catch people up, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got here, and some of the deeper parts of your life, if you don't mind sharing that with us.
So the short version is Laura and I know each other from college. I actually was living in Joplin, Missouri for a year, and I got a job opportunity to come back to Oklahoma because I lived here before. And I was like, oh my goodness, I guess I'm just gonna take it. And so I took it, and I was studying international studies at like that time in Joplin, and I came to UCO and took that job, and it was as the president of an organization, the Global Leadership Ambassadors, and it was the concept was having international students paired with domestic families of the community or domestic students on campus. Because as an international student, like it's hard to kind of adapt and like get friends and all that stuff when you come on campus. And Laura actually was one of the GLAs, we called them, and literally the first time we met, we were like, oh, we're gonna be best friends. We're kind of just deep people from the start, and we were like, there's definitely more to life than we know, and we love just talking deep and personal, so we just became friends.
Yeah, no, I loved that organization. It was for sure the highlight. It made me wish I had done clubs before that, because it was my first one. I was like, okay, well, if I need to be involved in college somehow, but how do I want to be? And then showing up the first day, I think I remember telling you I was so nervous. I was like, I don't know why I'm ever nervous. I'm not gonna make friends. I make friends everywhere, but it just like me and you getting really deep and getting very close. But I think that group in general was we were just a really close group, and I think we had a great time that year
for sure. And we got told like no other like group in that organization had been like that before, so we were like, and I think my personality mixed with like the vice president's, like he is so awesome, like you're gonna have to get him on here too. But
I'm so trying. He's just busy saving the world.
Per usual. But we just like, I just believe in keeping like an open space and a safe space, and I don't lead with like, I am your leader and you're gonna listen to me. Like I don't believe in that. So like I'm like, if you need to talk about something, please come to me, or like I can help you find someone to talk about that stuff. So that like just our morals, Laura and I's morals just lined up. So
yeah, definitely. And I think it showed. Humble brag, but I love that. I think it showed because at the end of the year we were actually awarded for our commitment. It was an organizational award for commitment to diversity on campus, which I thought was just, it showed how well we were like willing to accept people and just accept all the different kinds of nationalities. I mean, it was Korean, Malaysian, like quite a few Malaysians. Han, the vice president, he's from Myanmar. And then Victor, I'm trying to get him on here. I think he's gonna try to do it. He's from Vietnam.
You have to.
Oh my God, they're just incredible people that I'm like, you came to Oklahoma. I'm so glad you were here and you didn't go somewhere else, but I think it was a huge learning experience for me. But go ahead and we kind of like jumped into that. That's my favorite part of knowing you and how I met you. But go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself, how you grew up, how you got here, and
Okay, so I will start from the very beginning. So I hope we have time because it's long.
Yeah.
As long as you want, girl, we got time.
Yeah, so I grew up in a middle-class white family that lived in Sand Springs, Oklahoma. We worked hard, and that's all I pretty much do. My parents got divorced when I was, I think, 7. And I don't know, personally, I feel like I'm a very like intuitive person. I'm gonna start at the beginning of this, that I'm a Virgo. So it probably makes sense for a lot of things in my life that have like my personality. I knew my parents were gonna get divorced. Like they tried to hide it as much as possible from me, which I appreciate. Like, I mean, they didn't want me like involved in that stuff. But I was like, I know. Like I'm 7 and I know. So, and I had a younger sister. She's 3 years younger than I am. And they split, and I gained a stepdad that pretty much raised me, and he was amazing and the perfect dad figure for me, even though my dad was kind of still there. And I don't want to bash my dad, but like there had just been a lot of things just in our life that clashed and differences that we really couldn't like agree on. So I'll talk about that more. But my stepdad pretty much raised me with my mom, and I relied on them a lot. And I grew up playing soccer, which is going to play a big part in a couple minutes. Soccer was my life. My stepdad got me into soccer because he played soccer, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I was the kind of person, I did like a billion sports at the same time. Like I did gymnastics, I did softball, and I did soccer all at the same time. And my mom sat me down. She was like, pick one because you're breaking the bank. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, I like soccer the best. And I started with like rec soccer, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm playing for fun. And then I was actually at like the soccer fields at 9 years old. And this coach came up to me and he was like, hey, do you want to play competitive soccer? And I was like, what the heck is that?
At age 9?
Yeah. Wow. And I was like, I don't know what that is. And he was like, yeah, so pretty much competitive soccer gets you ready for college and like your career. And I was like, what's college? I'm 9. and so I started a competitive soccer team at age 9, and literally just I played with kind of the same group of people from age 9 to 19. And in between that, I mean, my mom and stepdad pretty much took me to everything. And then my dad and I kind of started getting into it at probably around 9 or 10. My dad, like many other kind of the typical dads, typical men, he kind of, I don't know, he was kind of an angry person and thought that his way was the right way and nobody else's way was right. And that kind of messed with me. And me, I'm like, if it's not right, it's not right, and I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah.
And so
it's very Virgo of you.
Very. And I mean, at a young age, so total, I think my dad has been married 7 times. And that messed with me a lot because I'm like, well, I know for my mom, like my mom did an amazing job. She's like my hero. But like I needed like a dad to like show me how I needed to be treated. And luckily I had my stepdad like to kind of fill that in. But my dad had to like, I think he had a lot of mental issues, and like he had a lot of anger issues. Like when he got angry, like there was no cap. Like, and like he never, I will say he never like physically abused us or anything, but it was a lot of mental abuse, like a lot. And like me, I know my worth, and I was like, I can't, you're not gonna do that to me.
That's awesome. At being like, so young that you need that.
Yeah, no, and like it made me grow up pretty fast, and I'm like, I know that I should not be treated like this or talked to like this. And I'm like 11 and I'm like telling my dad, hey, you can't talk to me like that. And I'm like sweating because I'm like, oh, somebody did that. But,
I'm 11 now. Yeah, that's scary. That's really scary. But
well, and like some scenarios that I'll like give examples of things like that is like when my dad would get married. It's so funny because he's like been married so much. I'm like, the one time that he got married, he would like move I don't really like to call them my stepmoms because they didn't really last long.
They didn't stay.
They didn't. And he would like move them in and literally kick me out of my own room and make me sleep in my sister's room. Yeah.
Oh,
and
goodness.
They would use my bed. So I'm like, I don't even have a place to like feel like home, like over here. So I was like, why the heck would I come over here if I don't even have my own bed? And so, and then another time he married a girl who was literally 12 years older than I was. She was 24 and he was 40. And I was like, okay. And she, I mean, props to her, but like, I'm 24 and I'm like, not for me. Like, I could not raise like a 9-year-old or a 12-year-old at that point who has divorced parents and is like kind of going through it. And she was just like trying to like parent me, and I was the angsty like 12-year-old. I was like, you're literally not my mom, and you're 12 years, you have your tassel on your mirror in your car from college. Don't talk to me. And so I was rude, but I could have been nicer, but I was just like, this doesn't make sense to me. Go away, please. Another scenario would be like, just like looking like for my dad to just be like, hey, like, what about me? And like, he never like took my side on anything. And this was with her. I like, that was the stepmom that I remember pretty well. We went to SeaWorld or something. And I was like, oh my gosh, SeaWorld. Well, we're like sitting in the airport, and I'm 12, I'm 10, 9, my sister's 9, 8 or 9. And we're sitting there, and my dad gets like a phone call, and he like walks away, just like takes the phone call. I was like, yeah, whatever. And I'm sitting there, and like me and my stepmom didn't like each other. Like, it was obvious, and we were just like, and I would poke, like, I'm 12, and I'm just like, blah, 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 like and I'm like, I'm not perfect. But I was
you
like,
were 12.
I know. And I legitimately remember saying, I was like, you have an elephant butt, which she didn't. She was like skinny. And like, it was just me trying to be funny. And she literally hit me in the middle of an airport, like hit me in the middle of an airport. I'm sobbing because I'm like, this lady just hit me. And I turn around to my dad, and I'm like yanking on his like sleeve, and I'm like, she just hit me. And literally my dad shoves me away, and he was like, I'm on the phone. And I'm like, your wife just hit me. And when I told him, he just like didn't believe me. And I'm like, okay, well, this red mark kind of speaks for itself. And so that happened. And so I started just like getting so angry at my dad. And I'm like, what do I matter then over here? Like, I don't want to come over here if I don't matter. And she's like actually hitting a 12-year-old. And then he just has a lot of like issues, and we've grown. It's not perfect, but I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, and then so when I got into high school, I was still kind of like going over to my dad's. I think it was sophomore year, we got into it, like to the point, I think, okay, so this is the story of like what happened. This was kind of like the breaking point for me. At that point, my life, like I said, was soccer. Like, I played high school soccer for the school, and I played competitive soccer. So I went to soccer at like 2 to 4, and then literally drove from there. Like, yeah, I'm 16 then because I drove, but 2 to 4, and then I drive all the way on the other side of Tulsa to go to my competitive soccer from 5 to 9. And then I get home, and I'm like, I'm in high school, and I'm busting it to get like do it. And like, my mom and stepdad, they weren't the type of people to be like, you have to get A's and we're not going to accept you, but they were like, we want you to try your best, and like, we won't accept anything less because we know what you're capable of, which I'm so thankful for now, because like I push myself and I feel guilty if I don't get things done. But yeah, so I'm like soccer, and then I'm starting to like get in touch with colleges a little bit for them to come look at me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I want to feel accepted, like everybody else is going, like starting to talk to D1 colleges, and I'm like, I want to go to a D1 college, oh my god. And so I'm like practicing so hard, I'm busting it in school, and like I'm still making A's, like, and I'm like, how the heck did I do that? My mental health, oh my gosh. And I remember at 16, my dad just like calls me up one day and he's like, hey, will you come over? And I'm like, yeah. And I come over and he's like, we're gonna go for a drive. And I'm like, okay. So he takes me to this like car dealership. And I was like, all right, like for my first car. And I was like, okay, well, I think my mom is like gonna buy my car because like I trust her more. I don't really want anything tied to you like that.
Yeah.
And we go around and literally and I wasn't saying anything. I was like, I mean, I don't want to make my mom mad by him, and like that's the kind of hard part of being the child of divorced parents, because you're like, I don't want to do anything to make this parent mad or this parent mad. And that's something me and my sister struggled with. We were like, well, like, what can we tell the other one? And like, and my mom, like I said, my mom never like was mad at us or anything for that, but we were just like, I feel stuck in the middle. So I'm going around and I literally say like, oh, I like that car. And literally homeboy shows up next day with that car. And I said, I like it. I didn't say I wanted it.
Oh my God.
He wanted to make it up and be super dad and buy me a car. And my mom, she wasn't mad at me, but she was livid. She was like, how dare you? Like, are you kidding me? And so I drove it for a little bit, but guess what? There were conditions to the car, even though I didn't ask for it.
Classic.
So now I'm like, well, thanks for the gift, but it's not really a gift because there's a condition to it. So I didn't really talk to like my grandma on that side. I just wasn't like close. And he was like, the condition is you have to talk to like call your grandma every single day, or I get the car taken away, because he had this notion that my mom's side of the family, we were sitting around the campfire singing Kumbaya every single day. That's what my mom, like when we refer to that, she's like, does he think we're just like sitting around the campfire singing Kumbaya? Like, you're at soccer until 9 and don't get to eat dinner till like 10 and then don't go to sleep. And like everybody's at work. Like my parents worked and I'm like, we have jobs, we have lives, we have stuff to do. And like, like wow. I'm close with like my mom's side, but we don't like talk to or like see each other every day. And you don't have to do that. And so that lasted literally 3 days. I called my grandma for 3 days and I was like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, stop.
Oh no.
Okay. Like I don't know what to say.
That's like, so much pressure.
Yeah, and I'm 16.
Yeah, I was just saying, more or less a child.
Yeah, and I'm like, I have the pressure of soccer, like what college am I gonna get into, and school, my ACTs.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That was a thing.
Being a kid, and I was just like, what the heck? So that lasted for like 3 days, and then my dad calls me up and he's like, hey, you didn't call her. And I was like, I'm so sorry, like I can't, I don't have anything to talk about. And I think my grandma felt awkward too, because she, like, we called and we were just like, hey, okay, bye. And like, yeah, and so I was like, this is so weird. And I told my mom, and my mom was like fuming on it. She didn't tell me, but she was just like, she was fuming because she knew how much pressure it was putting on me. And so one day, this is the huge break, and I will never forget every single detail of it. So one day we go to the mall, Woodland Hills Mall in Tulsa, and I go with my dad, my sister, and my sister's friend. and we're walking, and my dad like goes off to do his own thing, and we're like, okay, we're gonna go, like us girls are gonna do our own thing, go to like Bath and Body Works, go do this, whatever. And we see this group of like, I don't know, 12-year-old, 13-year-old girls just like walking around on their phones, just like looking at people. You know how they do that, like malls.
Yeah.
I'm laughing and I'm like, oh my gosh. And my sister was
I did that.
Yeah. And I was like, I did that. And my sister's like, are those girls looking at us? And I was like, yeah, but like, it's fine. Like, whatever. They're 13, whatever.
Yeah.
And so then we go up to the food court and we sit down, and me and like my sister and her friend were talking, and she was like, oh, there's the girls who are looking at us. And my dad goes, what? And I was like, oh, like, they're just like, whatever, like just petty little girls. Like, what? And we didn't even talk to them. And he was like, they were looking at you. Like, he was so serious. And I was like, bro, it ain't that serious. It's like,
they're 13.
Yeah.
Like, bro.
And so then they were walking behind their mom, and they had an older brother, and I think he was like 17 or something. And my dad, literally, they walk right in front of us, and my dad stares daggers into these 13-year-old girls. And so the mom turns around and she's like, sir, like, what are you doing? And the older, and I am like shaking at this point. I'm like, this is not happening to me. This is not real. And I was like, Dad, stop, like, it's no big deal, like, stop. And this, like, the 17-year-old brother was just like, bro, like, are you kidding me? Like, you need to stop. Like, that's creepy, that's weird.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and my sister and her friend are just like silent in the back, and I'm like, you need to stop. And so I'm like, I'm so sorry, like, I'm sorry, like, to these people, like, trying to make up for it. And so then my dad like stands up and starts to buck up to this 17-year-old kid, and I was like, I blacked the heck out, and I just opened my eyes. I was outside, and I walked away, like, got up, left my sister, left everything, and I walked away, called my parents. I say my parents, my mom and my stepdad.
Yeah.
Sobbing, and I'm shaking, and my mom's like, what's wrong? And I was like, this happened, you need to come pick me up right now.
Aww.
And I was traumatized. And so I called my mom, and they were, I felt so bad, they were out on a date, because it was like the one time like I'm out. And I was like, and my mom gives the phone to my stepdad, and I was like, you need to come get me right now. I was like, I refuse to get in a car like with this man. Like, I'm actually scared. And my stepdad's just like, this is like the one time I heard my stepdad, and he was like almost in tears because he felt so bad. He was like, I'm so sorry, we are so far away, and like we can't get there like in time. And so there's literally like a police car outside, and I was like, should I go do this? Like, and so I was like, I'm not gonna do it. So I, like, my mom was like, just have your dad take you to the house. And I was like, I do not want to get in a car with him. And she was like, I don't know what else to do. And I was like, okay, fine. So then I turn around, and my dad's just like pacing, like looking for me. And he like grabs my arm, and he was like, don't you ever walk away from me like that. And he was like, we couldn't find you. And I looked this man at 16 years old in the face, and I said, take me to my mom's right now. I am never coming over to your house ever again. And he didn't say anything at all. And my sister and her friend are just like, and I was just like, I'm over it. Like, all this trauma, all this whatever. And so then he takes me to the house, drops me off. So this is my car. We were driving my new car that he bought. All of my soccer stuff is in the back. All my school stuff is in like the trunk. He whips into my mom's like driveway, gets out, and I'm like, why is he getting out? He pops the trunk, takes all of my stuff, and literally throws it in my mom's yard. So I'm 16 years old, and I'm like,
oh,
wow. So I take all the stuff in, and my mom was home by then, and I was like, oh my gosh. So we take all this stuff, and I'm like holding it, and I go through the door, and I just drop it, and I have never cried that hard. And my mom, you know what my mom looks like, Laura?
Mm-hmm.
Literally an angel. Like, my mom.
That's what I was about to say. sweetest lady. She's like
My
the teacher, right?
No, my mom is a kindergarten teacher.
A kindergarten. I wanted to say that kindergarten teachers.
Yeah.
A sweet angel. Yes.
Yeah. And my mom, like, she never ever gets mad. And when she gets mad, she's like, don't do that. But my mom, she was shaking. Like, my mom was just like, I was scared of my mom because my mom was just like about to kill someone. And my stepdad, he is so mellow and like the smartest person on like how to react to situations. And so they both sat me down in the living room, and my mom's just like, oh, I want to drive a car through his house, like whatever. And my dad's like, so what do you want to do next? Because it's your decision. Wow. And I was like, wow. And I was like, I can't believe I had to like make this decision like as a kid, like,
yeah,
my dad or not. So in high school, I was just like, I dealt with my stuff through sports. And I don't know, I was in high school from like 2011 to like 15. And like at that time, like mental health wasn't really advocated. And it's so funny because it was like 5-10 years ago. And like it wasn't advocated as much as it is now. Mm-hmm. And so I'm in high school, like, okay, whatever, like I'll just be with my friends and play soccer. And like I was the good kid because I was scared of my parents. I never went to parties. I literally never drank until I went to college. And my mom, I got like, I was an adult and she's like, are you serious? And I was like, you told me not to. And I was scared of you. I dealt with it through sports, and I didn't really talk about it with my friends. And I literally remember before any of this happened, I think it was my freshman year, because all of that happened my sophomore year of high school. My freshman year, my dad dropped me off to school one day, literally the one day that he dropped me off to school, and we got into it somehow. And I remember that day we were supposed to go on a field trip because all the buses were in the front. And I got out and I was like, it looked like I'd been crying because I had. And I got out and this kid, he comes up to me and like, I just wasn't like really talking. He was like trying to mess with me. And I was like, just like, not right now, dude. And he was like, what, do you have daddy problems? And I was like, yep, like very serious. And he goes, I am so sorry. Like he felt so bad. And I was like, I'm just saying, like, I don't mind it because I know you were like kidding. I was like, just please be careful, like with what you say, because some people really be going through it. And so, yeah, all that passed. And after that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to go see somebody, a professional, and see what they have to say. Just kind of like a neutral ground person, because like I always got advice from like my mom and like family members and stuff. And I was like, I want to see what like somebody else has to say. And so I literally went to therapy one time and I was able to make a decision. I went for one day. The one day I went in, and it was so funny. It was kind of like the typical like therapy session you see on TV when like the kid goes in and they don't really want to talk. And like, she asked me, like, which is so respectful. She was like, do you want like your mom in here? And I was like, she can for like half of it, but like the other half, like I kind of want to be by myself. And so at first, like when my mom was in there, I just like wasn't talking, and she was like, hi. And she was so sweet. I remember she was blonde. I don't even remember her name. And she was like, okay, like, what's your name? Like, what's going on? And so my mom left and I spilled it. And this lady, she was like, oh. And I was like, yeah, that's real.
How old were you when this were you still 16?
Yeah, I was
when
16.
You first went to
right
therapy?
after it happened.
Wow.
And so she told me, she was like, sometimes people need distance. And that's all she said. She was like, sometimes people need distance to make a decision. That is literally all she said to me. And I left. I went down to the lobby and I called my dad and I said, I am not coming to your house anymore. Do not call me. Do not text me. Do not talk to me. And he was literally, all he said was, well, if that's your decision. And then he hung up. And I was like, okay. And I wasn't mad about it because I was like, if that's how you're going to react to it, then that's fine.
then that means you made the right decision.
Yeah. And so I was like, I don't regret anything.
Wow.
So then after that, I just like dove into high school, and I was like, okay. And it kind of gave me flashbacks. So when I was 14, it was like 13 or 14, I just remembered I would be at like my mom's house, and I would just say like I didn't want to go to my dad's house because of like things like that. And he would race his truck over to my mom's house, and like legally I had to go with him because like we went through court and everything, and like I wasn't old enough to like be like no. And yeah, I was probably 13 because I think 14 is like you can make a decision. But he would drive over and pick me up, and my mom is just crying. She's like, I'm so sorry. And my mom's just like, I want to help you so bad. I'm so sorry. And I'm like,
God,
and I'm like 13. I'm like, Mom, it's fine. I got this. And like, oh, sorry, there's somebody outside. Keep in mind, like, my sister is like seeing all of this. So like she didn't really go through, she had her own journey of it for sure. But he like would come pick me up and literally would be like dangerously speeding down the highway. And I like at 13 years old, I have my hand on the door handle literally whenever he's like rolling to try to like jump out at 13 years old. And I'm like, how did I get in this situation? I'm not safe. Like, to the point where I like open the car door when it's moving and literally jump out of your car because I'm terrified of you. And so I like when I went to therapy, I was like, I know I made the right decision. And for my mental health, if I kept going, I would be such a different person. I would be so worn out. I would just be like, I don't even want to imagine what I would be like. I'd probably be a very angry person. But yeah, so after that, I didn't talk to my dad from 16. He called me the day before I left for college. That was the next time he ever talked to me. I got a scholarship. I went to this school, which is another experience I will talk about. The trauma never ends. But he called me and he just said, hey, like, do you want to like talk about everything? And at that point in my life, I'm like I was 18. And at that point, I'm like, I am done talking about the past because it's gotten us nowhere. I need to move on. And this man said to me the day before I left for college, he said, well, if you don't want to talk about the past, then we have nothing to talk about, and hung up. And I was like, okay, bye. Yeah. He didn't know what college I was going to. He didn't know where I was moving to. And I was just like, thanks.
Wow.
And so then, so that happened. And we didn't talk for a long time after. I think we went a total of like 7 years without talking. Because I was just like, every time we like tried, it was the same thing over again. Yeah. And it was always, well, what did I ever do to you? And I was like, I have physically written down literally a list and given it to you on paper, what you have done to me to make us get to this point, and you're still asking me that. And apparently that's not enough. And I was like, I can write a song for you if you want, but that's a little excessive. And I was just like, at that point, like, you're not looking for those answers. You're
just gaslighting.
You're wanting me to say something that I did. And I was like, I told you that I was probably the only thing that I did was I was an angry teenager, like a typical teenager. I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah.
So that happened. And then I got a scholarship at a college in Oklahoma City. I don't want to say the college because there's a lot of stuff that came with it, and I don't want to get in trouble with it. But it was a Christian college. And I was like, okay, like that's fine. And I went with my best friend Kinsey, and she's amazing.
She's great. I love her.
And we were like, oh my gosh, like we're freshmen, like we're gonna go play college soccer. And she played soccer too. So we went. And before that, like the college coaches, they were like, oh my gosh, like, and my junior or senior year, my competitive soccer team was literally the #1 team in the state of Oklahoma. So I didn't know if you knew that.
I didn't. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
No, and like we were so proud of ourselves because like we worked so hard for it. And so we had like all these colleges looking at us, and we were like, I think I signed because I was just excited because somebody wanted me. And I was like, oh, cool. And it was a Christian college, and I grew up in the church, and I knew I was supposed to do this and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll stay pure. I'll stay with the Christian gang. This school was not like that. It put on the best front I have ever experienced in my life.
Oh, wow.
It was like a train hit me, and I was like, this is reality. Okay. And so I'd been with my parents, lived with my parents until I was 18. I moved out, went to college. The first couple of weeks I was there, I was like, okay. And like everybody was so excited because the freshmen were coming and like fresh meat. And everybody was like wanting to be like our friends. And I was like, oh my gosh. And we actually met one of our really good friends. He's from Australia. He also played soccer. His name's Dom. And he was a genuine person. Like he's awesome. And he still is. I think he lives in Stillwater or something now. But he was like one of our good friends. But they were very minimal that were like true friends. And I found that out real quick. This college was so small that it was high school 2.0, and everybody knew your business. And that was traumatizing.
Wow.
So I went through a lot of like identity issues and like acceptance issues because of everything I just went through with my dad. And I was like, I just need somebody to accept me and somebody to, I don't know, be with me and whatever. And I forgot before that. So in high school, because this pertains to it. So in high school, I can't believe I'm saying this. In high school, I had a boyfriend, and we dated for like 2 years. And he also played soccer. I'm like really in with the soccer community, if you can't tell. And he was really good. He was nice to everybody else, and he wasn't not nice to me, but then at the end of our relationship, it started getting like mentally and verbally abusive. Like we would be like in the car or something, and like I would be like driving us to lunch and get back, and he's like calling me like a hoe or a whore or a hooker, and I'm like, huh? I'm confused. I'm like, stop, like that's not a funny name. I know that I'm not. I heard that for myself. And he thought it was funny. And we were the couple that went through like makeup, breakup, because we were comfortable. And I was just like, he's the only one who could ever like love me. And this is all happening at the tail end of, we dated from 16 to 18. So literally the tail end of like my dad issues. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to confide in this guy. And I bet he's a good guy today. I don't want to like bash him completely. I hope he's doing well and grown as a person. Yeah, and he would be like, I don't accept it in my mind as cheating because I don't think I wanted to think about it like that. Like I didn't want to be embarrassed and be like, oh, he cheated on you, but he 1,000% did. I would pick up his phone and he's like messaging other girls, and like I remember I picked up his phone and he like, this girl was like, aren't you dating Aleecia? And he was like, yeah, but I'm about to break up with her. And I confronted him about it, and he was like, oh, it's a joke. Literally he said that, and I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, now I'm like 24, and I'm like, dude, get it together. And then okay, so back to college, like I was like, I came in with a new boyfriend, and I'm 18 or 19, and he's 24, and he's like in the Air Force and stuff. And he was such a nice guy. And like, if I was home, we probably would have lasted like at least a little bit longer. But I was just like, I'm ready to go to college. I'm ready to be crazy. I'm ready to do my own thing. I'm angsty and I have been cooped up my whole life and I want to do fun stuff. So I felt so bad and I was just like, sorry, like we're not gonna work out. And he was just like, okay. And I kind of like regret it now. I mean, I'm married, but like I regret being so like rude to him because I was just like, peace out. I want to do my own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I get to college and I like, to be quite frank, I just like lost it. Like I was not myself. I in one situation so back up, sorry. There were a lot of international like students that came to the school because of their sports, and their sport, like soccer especially, like they would go to like nationals, like they were the number one team like in the country. And so there was a lot of international people, and literally our first day we got there, the senior like girls, they were like, do not mess with the foreign boys. And we were like, okay, whatever. I messed with the foreign boys.
Classic.
Yeah, and I got myself like in a situation where this guy, he like honestly pressured me, and I'm like, I want to be cool and like all this stuff. So we got into it, and everybody found out because, like I said, this was high school 2.0, and everybody was just like teasing me and not the man about it because this is really TMI,
yeah.
but like this is part of the story, but like they would call me 3 minutes. That's literally, they would call me 3 minutes. And I'm like, okay. So that really messed with me, like my mental health, because I was like, this whole school's looking at me and like literally calling me a whore. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like a man can go around and do this, but a woman can't. And so I like felt really defeated and felt like I was worthless. And so that's whenever I started to get like severely depressed. And so I like would just go to soccer practice, go to class, and go to bed. I was like, I don't want to see anyone. I don't want to hang out with anyone. And so Kinsey and I started to just kind of like drift apart, just like doing our own thing, which is totally fine. Kinsey started hanging out with other people, and I was like, yeah, whatever. And the soccer coach hated me for some reason. And I'm like, I go from being the captain of the soccer team, like literally from 9 to 19, to this man wanting to recruit me, being nice to my face. And then when I get there, literally hates me. Like, turns out he got fired. He would like grab like our shirts and like pull us to like the positions like he wanted us to. And I'm like, first of all, and like, I think it was just me and my personality. Like, I didn't take a lot of stuff that the other girls took. I'm like, first of all, you're not going to touch me like that.
Yeah.
And he didn't like it. And I was just like, sorry, I'm going to stick up for myself. My mom raised me like that. I have respect for myself. Yeah. And so me and the soccer coach had an issue, and I was starting as a freshman, which is rare. So I would start, and then I wouldn't, but I would still go in, and then I wouldn't, and then I would still go in. And then by the end of the season, I was sitting on the bench the entire time. And so literally I'm sitting here and I was like, my whole identity has been soccer. What am I supposed to do now?
Wow.
Yeah. And so I'm just sitting here, and like I said, I'm a Virgo. So I have planned my funeral already. I'm like, I know everything to a T. So for me, like I have a really hard time when things don't go how I planned it. And I've had to adjust, like in my growth, like things aren't going to go your way. And being in college by yourself without your parents, you're just like, what in the world?
Yeah.
Now? And going into college, I was like, I'm going to be a physical therapist. I'm going to have a doctor in front of my name, and I'm going to do this. And then I took one semester of like kinesiology classes, and I'm like, well, this sucks. I'm like, I literally don't know what to do. So I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I have to come home. And my mom, and like in our family, like college is an option, but like my parents want you to go to college, like the system, and like you're gonna get farther having a college degree, which I completely understand. And so I'm like, I was struggling. So I'm like, am I disappointing my parents? Like, I don't want to waste their money because like I don't know what I'm doing. And like I feel so alone here, and I'm just like, everybody's making fun of me. Soccer sucks and school sucks, and I literally don't have any friends. I'm coming home. And so it's the last week of school, and I find out that the soccer coach is getting fired and getting a new coach, which was our assistant coach, which like we were really cool, and he like we liked each other. And I was just like, well, crap. Like, do I stay? Literally, I'm not kidding. Literally the last week of like the semester. And I'm like, do I stay? Like, what do I do now? So the day I found out, I called my mom and I was like, Mom, like, I don't know what to do. And she was like, well, whatever you do, you need to make a decision fast because you have about a week. And I was like, okay. So I was like, I think I'm going to stay. I think I'm going to like, whatever, do this thing and try to like fix everything and be happy. And because like I still love soccer and I don't want to end like this. And so I get home to Tulsa from this place, Evil College. And I get a text, and it's this guy, and he's like, hey, do you want to go on a date? And I'm like, what? I was like, I haven't talked to you literally since the last day we graduated of high school. And he was like, yeah, I know it's weird, but like, do you want to go on a date? And I was like, not really, no thanks. And I was like, oops. Because like I vowed to myself, like going home, I was like, I am done with boys for right now. Like I need to find myself. And so I was like, no thanks. And so the next day came and he texted me again, and he was like, hey, I'm so sorry, this is really weird, but do you want to go on a date? And I'm like, no thanks.
Oh my God, I know. Is this Hunter?
Yeah.
I love this. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
No.
And
I was like, no thanks.
I
And then
love
he
this.
texted me the next day, and this guy is not holding up. And I'm like, dude, I was like, we were like friends in high school, but like we were more of like acquaintances. Like we didn't hang out with the same people. I actually dated his best friend, which is funny, in like freshman year, not like the other guy. But yeah, and I was just like, and it was the day after Christmas, so the 26th. And I was like, you know what? My mom, she bought me these shoes for Christmas and they're too big. Like, do you want to go with me to return them and like get a different size? And he was like, yeah, sure. And so I was like, okay. And like how I remembered him from high school was like, he kind of hung out with like, I don't want to say the wrong crowd because everybody has their own thing, but like he hung out with people that like I typically wouldn't hang out with. He played baseball too, and he was just like, he was the cool kid and everybody liked him, and I was just like not interested. And I was like, okay. And he showed up we met at like a quick trip because he like how we just like came in the middle. And I started getting like a little nervous because I was like, oh, I haven't seen this guy since high school. And he shows up, and I like open the door and like sit in his car because he was a gentleman. He was driving, and I was like, hey, and he was like, hey, and we talked, and I was like, am I being punked? I was like, this is not the guy I knew, and I was just like, this is weird. And so we went to the mall, and like, keep in mind, I am wearing sweatpants, a hoodie, my hair is in a ponytail, I have no makeup on because I'm just like, whatever, like we're just hanging out. And we leave the mall and he just goes, hey, do you want to go see Christmas lights? And I'm like, sure. So he takes me to see Christmas lights. Well, the Christmas lights weren't on. They're off. And he was like, well, this is embarrassing. I was like, okay. And then we had to like go to Walmart or something like for his parents. And I was like, all right. And then it started dumping rain. And then we were like soaked. And then he took me to a movie like that night. And we come out of the movies. There's a tree and like a whole branch. And did we lose Laura?
Yeah, I think we lost Laura. Hopefully she'll
jump back on.
Yeah.
So we come out of the movie and he runs into a tree. Like he gets like clotheslined into a tree.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, what is happening? And so then we're like talking like the whole time. And I'm like, wow. I was like, this is incredible. And like, I can't describe like the feeling, but I was just like, there is something more to us than I know. And then after that, we hung out every single day until I had to go back the next semester. The first 3 days, I like wrote in my notes and I literally said, I am going to marry this man. And I ended up doing it.
Wow.
And
yeah.
it turned out he after high school, so he was really good at baseball too. So we're both really big sports people. And he loves baseball. Well, he was actually supposed to be signed to Arkansas to go play baseball. And he tore his knee up. And so they dropped him literally before. So he got really depressed. He was going through stuff because he was like, his whole identity was baseball. And he's just like, well, now what do I do? And so I was like, it's funny. We both kind of went through it. And he just worked because he was like, I don't want to go to college right now because I don't know what I want to do. He worked and then he worked for that whole semester. And then that's when he like got in contact with me and he kind of changed his life around and he like was a totally different person. And I was just like, that's why I was like, am I being punked? Like, this is weird. But we hung out every single day. And going from the first semester being with guys that made fun of me and called me 3 minutes and just were not very nice, to someone who like was wholeheartedly like in love with me and saw a future with me and wanted to help make me a better person. I was just like, and I was like in shock and I was like, what? And I was like, is this too good to be true? And then so I think it was like 3 days. This was like in the span of like Christmas break. 3 days in, he actually broke up with me. He broke up with me and he was scared. He was just like, and it's so funny because the day before that he like, or not the day before, a month before he like started talking to me, he was like, I just like prayed out loud and I was like, God, like if you have someone for me, like I just want to be like prepared for that and like I'm ready to settle down and like be with someone. And then literally a month later, how he actually texted me is an amazing story. So he texted me that first time. He was like, hey, this is really weird. Like, do you want to go on a date? He actually had a dream about me that night before. And I was like, oh, that was weird. And he was like, I just had a dream and I just remember seeing you and you turned around and saw me. And he said, I had that dream 2 days in a row. And I was like, Hunter, like, that's so weird.
Yeah.
So we just ended up here and so he broke up with me and I was like devastated because I was like, we've hung out for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 days. And like my heart, like this is the worst breakup I have ever been in and I was in a relationship for like 2 years. And I was like, my heart like hurt so bad. And so I was just like, I was trying to be respectful too. And I was just like, I mean, I guess I understand. Like, if that's your decision, then like I'll be here as a friend if you need me to. Like, and it was so hard. I just wanted to be like, no. But I was just like, hey, if you need me, like I'll be here for you. And he was just like, okay. So I guess in that time frame, he talked to his mom and he was just like, I'm not good enough for her. I feel like she deserves somebody better. He was self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
And his mom was like, he'll have to say it, but like all good things like come from God or like something like that. And he texted me back. Oh, she's back. He texted me back and he was like, the next day, well, during that time when he was like, hi, you're fine. Whenever he was like talking to his mom and stuff, I'm like literally ugly crying all day. And I like go down and it's so funny. My stepdad, he's a graphic designer. He actually owns his own company and he's amazing. He's awesome. Yeah. He was downstairs working in his home office and I'm like crying. And I walked down and I'm like, where's mom? And he was like, are you okay? And I was like, where's mom? And this was when we were like really into church. And my grandma actually used to decorate like for the church and it was right after Christmas. So they were taking the Christmas decorations down. And I got in my car and I drove to the church and I'm sobbing. And my mom, she was like, you walked through the door, and I just felt heavy. And I was like, yeah. And I sat in that pew and I cried so hard. And my grandma was there too. And so they were just both like, wow. And I was just like, I'm gonna marry him someday. Like, I just know it. Like, I just have this feeling. Like, I can't explain it. Like, I just know I'm gonna marry him. And they were like, okay. So they're trying to comfort me as much as possible. And I left. And my grandma told me this actually like maybe probably a year ago. She was like, when you left, your mom, she told me, she was like, I have never, ever in my life seen her like that, ever. She was like, she's going to marry him. And so like they would like start crying and they were like, oh my gosh. And so then he eventually texted me back literally the next day and he was like, hey, I want to go out. And I'm like, yes, I do. And we hung out every single day after that. He told me he loved me after literally, I think it was on the 14th day. He came to Oklahoma City because he still lived in Tulsa. He would come up every single weekend and come see me because he was just like, I can't not see you. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And we were walking the River Walk in downtown in Bricktown. And he said, our life is so funny. He said, hey, I have to tell you something. And I'm like, okay. And he said, I love you. And I said, you do? And he said his heart stopped. He was like, yeah. I was like, oh, well, I love you too. And the first month we were dating, I was just like, I'm sorry if this like weirds you out, but we're gonna get married. And he was like, oh yeah, no, I know. And so we've just always been like whatever it is, like soulmates or whatever. Like, I mentally cannot imagine myself like with anybody else. And like, we just even each other out so much. Like, I'm an anxious, stressed out person. And Laura knows Hunter is like the
so chill.
Like,
so chill.
Yeah, like he's the one, like if there's like a house party or something, he is literally in the corner just like watching. And like, I love that because I'm like, I get to be like the fun one. He's like, hey. But yeah, so we got married. We got engaged after 5 months, and I was like, I cannot wait. I'm not kidding. I can't wait. And mind you, I am we're both 20 years old, and I'm like, this is scary, but let's do it. And he proposed to me at my grandma's house because like we're just both so family oriented. His family was there too. And then we waited a year. We got married the next year. And then that's kind of when stuff started happening with like in-laws and stuff. So I always pictured of like whoever I'm gonna marry having like awesome in-laws and totally accepting, and it was honestly the complete opposite. And honestly, we've like, me and them, we've grown so much since then. And then this is like recent. So we got married in 2017. Well, before we got married, I find out that like Hunter is the favorite. Like, and his siblings know that too. Like, they always say that too. And like, they acknowledge it, and they're like, Hunter is the favorite. And Hunter's like the kind of person who's like, I didn't ask for it. Like, he doesn't really care. He's just like, okay. And his mom and him, well, his mom towards him have a very like dependent relationship on him. And there's stuff that like in her relationship that like I won't even, like, she's lived a hard life. I will say that. Like, there's stuff that has happened that I'm like, oh, I understand because of that. And I respect that. But there were things that happened that I was like, this is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
It's going to be an issue. And I'm 20. So I'm like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And it was just boundaries issues, and texts like, Hunter, you are the air that I breathe, you're everything. And I'm like, I don't even say that. Which I'm like, I'm totally like, that is your son, like, have a relationship with him. Like, I'm totally for that. But like, there's boundaries whenever like I come in, and like, I will respect you if you respect me. And I'm the type of person that I don't want to make anyone angry or ruffle feathers, but I'm just like, okay, well, I'm gonna tell my fiance about this if I have like issues. So we went through marriage counseling before we got married, because I was like, we need to get some stuff out, because we come from two different worlds. Hunter comes from poor, low class, literally living paycheck to paycheck, water and electricity being turned off at his house. I come from, I'm able to go play a competitive soccer team and high school soccer and do this and get the new iPhone and like get this, and like, I'm so blessed that like my parents worked hard for that, and I appreciate that, and I never, like, I'm so humbled about it. But we come from two different worlds, and that was kind of like, it wasn't an issue with us, we just had to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because there were things that like I did that he was like, why are you doing that? And like things that he did, I'm like, you know, you can go spend money on food if you want to. And he's like, we can eat a can of beans if you want. And I'm like, bro, no. So yeah, I told him, I was just like, I think he asked like one thing, the marriage counselor, he was like, what's one thing that scares you? And I spilled it, and I was like, honestly, the relationship that you have with your mother. And he was just like, what? And he was like, he had no idea. He had no idea any of it was happening. And the whole like year, like we were engaged, and like the whatever time we were together, I would just be like sitting on the outside, and I'm like, kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I like told him, and he's like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't know. And I'm like, I'm just telling you, like, I just want to let you know. And then this guy on Mother's Day, he sat down with his mom and told him that she had to like lay off. And I was like,
Wow.
Timing, Hunter, timing.
I know. And like, you know, like, he doesn't care. He'll just say it. And I'm like, okay, well, and I had no idea he was going to talk to her about that. And so I'm out there playing with my niece, and then I go in and I'm like, okay, happy Mother's Day, and like giving her a hug. And she was like, mm. And then we left and he was like, yeah, so I talked to her, and I was like, ooh. Are you
Like,
kidding me?
what about a heads up, bro?
Yeah. And I was like, that was so awkward. So that happened, and like his family is like that, like that's all they have, is since they don't have a lot of money. And like I honestly, I respect that, and they rely on each other, and if you come between them and their family, that is an issue. And I felt like I was, so I felt like really intimidated, and so I didn't really like, it probably was my fault, but like I didn't try to like have a proper relationship with them. Like I was nice, and I'd come over for Christmas and like do all this, like do fiance or wife stuff, and I just never really felt like part of the family. And I'm like, I feel awkward. And at the very beginning of when we like, were dating, he has a younger brother, like a year younger than him, and love him to death. But he was like, aren't you like really city? Because they're like really like country like people, which is fine. But he like, I was like, I mean, I've just never really like been in the situation to be like around that stuff. And so I just kind of felt like out of place and not really accepted. And so I was like, well, great. So now all the stuff from my dad like is coming up, and I'm like, I don't feel accepted. I don't feel accepted with my dad. I don't feel accepted in high school. I don't feel accepted in college. Now I'm getting married, and I don't even feel accepted with my in-laws. So I'm like, here we go again. And so I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, my mental health has to come first, and I have to take care of myself. So every time I felt like an issue with something, I would tell Hunter about it. And he's such an amazing person, because he would always like, I don't want to say be on my side, but like he would stick up for me. And he's like,
he's very supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hunter is so supportive, and he's just like, this is my wife, and I'm going to be with her, and I don't know what else to tell you guys. So it was his mom losing her son, but not gaining like me. And so I was just like, I'm not trying to take your son away from you. I want you to see him. And it was just a lot of that. So I don't even want to get into every detail of my wedding. So my wedding was kind of sabotaged. It wasn't.
Oh my goodness.
You dream about your wedding day as a girl, as a little girl, and how it's gonna go, and mine was a disaster. And
I'm so sorry. Yeah.
No, it happened, and like Hunter and I talk about it. We're just like, you know what? It happened for a reason, and unfortunately, it was that day. It couldn't have happened like any other day. But it was kind of sabotaged, and luckily on the outside, my family, they were like, we had no idea anything was going on. But for me, I don't know what got into these people's heads, but everybody told me everything that was happening. And I'm like, okay, it's not like I'm literally supposed to walk down the aisle in 5 minutes. And I'm like, no, like I wanted to marry Hunter. I was like, I'm about to literally say, everybody go home. I will marry him. Literally just me and him here. I don't care. Everybody leave.
Yeah.
And so I was so upset. The people who were involved know kind of what went down, and they regret it. They've told me they regret it and can't take it back. And so I get done getting married, and people just like start to leave like our wedding, and I'm like, okay. So I was just over it. Mentally, I was done. I was like, whatever, like literally whatever.
Yeah.
So we're staying at these cabins literally right down like the road from our venue, and I looked at Hunter and I said, we need to leave now. And he was like, okay. He did not ask questions. He didn't pry me. He said, okay, like whatever you want. And so we get down, and the groomsmen stayed in that cabin the night before, because they had like the groomsmen, whatever. And the guys were down there getting like their stuff out. And I walk up in my white dress crying. And I said, if your name is not Hunter Aleecia, get out. And all of them were like, okay, we're good. So I was like, so we get into the cabin and I sit on the bed and I sobbed. And I was just like, I haven't cried that hard in a long time. And I was just like, why would they do that to me? Oh, that was my wedding day. And Hunter, he was just quiet. He was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He didn't, and he felt guilty. And I was just like, you literally didn't do anything. Literally all we did was get married. It was everything that happened around it. And so that was kind of the first sign that I was like, I have the best man sitting next to me, because he stuck up for me, and he was like, that was unacceptable. And so after that, we go to our honeymoon. People are blowing up my phone, calling me every name in the book, every single one. I don't think they left one out. I had to get to the point where I had to turn my phone off at my honeymoon because I'm sobbing still for a week. Because people are still at me, and I'm like, and so Hunter, he didn't even let me hear it. He went, got on the phone, called whoever he needed to call. It was done.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. And we're still 20. We're 20 years old. We just got married, and we're going through this. And I was like, okay, well, this was not on my dream board. And then we didn't talk to his family so we got married in June. The next time we talked to his family was in November, and the only purpose of talking to them was talking about what happened, and that did not go well at all.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was total denial. It was, we didn't do this, you did this, all this stuff. And I'm sitting there and literally just thinking about going back. It was so crazy. It was like I wasn't even present. I was just thinking about every conversation I had with my dad about how nothing is ever his fault. And I told Hunter, I was like, before we even went, I was like, Hunter, sorry. It's not even worth it to me. I'm just letting you know, we'll talk when we talk, but it's not even worth it to me, because I know exactly what they're gonna say. And he'd never been through it before, so I was like, he just had to go through it. And so it was exactly that scenario. We ended up screeching our tires and driving off because he was so angry. And I was like, and I it happened to me, and I'm the calm one, and I'm just I expected it.
Yeah.
I knew it was gonna happen.
That's hard to be that person too.
Yeah. And so I it's so funny because I still in that time of them hurting me so bad, I was like, I still want you to have a relationship with your family. That is your family. And I was like, but only when you are ready. I was like, don't let anybody else tell you when is the right time or force you to do anything. And I was like, I've been through it. Whenever you are ready, you are ready. And he was like, okay. So my husband and I decided to up and move to Joplin, Missouri, literally away from everybody. We don't have family, we don't have friends. We moved into this little apartment, 1-bedroom apartment in Joplin, right next to Missouri Southern State. And we were like, okay, let's do it. Hunter just turned 21. I wasn't even 21 yet. I was just like, what is happening? And we figured it out. We were so poor. And that was such an adjustment to me. I told you, I grew up, if you want to go out to eat, go out to eat. If you want to go have fun, go have fun. We could not do that. And that was one thing that we clashed on, was I want to go do this. And he's like, well, we can't. And I'm like, well, why? And it's so cliche, it's so funny, but him telling me no, I had to learn that. And because I said, I got to do whatever I wanted. And so he went to Ozark Christian College, and I went to Missouri Southern State. And I went to study international studies because I was like, well, I don't want to study kinesiology because I don't want to be a physical therapist. And I was like, you know what? I like people, so I want to learn about like all people. And so I went, and it was fine. It was just I had no friends and I wasn't involved, and I was like, this is kind of boring. And I worked at a tanning salon for like $11 an hour. And he worked at a gym for about the same. And we like, that's all we did. Like we grinded so hard, and we were like, and like every day we were like, this is not the life we want to live, so we have to work for it. And at 21, you're just like, other people are in college in their dorm room or living at home with their parents. And I'm like, and we were like the first of our friends to get married. So we couldn't even ask marriage advice from like other people. We were like, we are the married people. And so I just told Hunter, I was just like, and after the whole wedding thing, that I was depressed. Like that was whenever it was like at its peak. I didn't want to get out of bed. I've had anxiety my whole life, but like that was peak. And like I wanted to go to school, work, and then bed. On weekends I literally just lay in bed, and he didn't really know how to handle it because he says he's like never had depression, which is like, I'm like, lucky. But,
yeah, right.
He's like, I don't know like what to do. And I was like, there's nothing to do. I was like, let me go through like my journey of it. We talked a lot, and I vented a lot. He's so sweet. He's just like, okay,
cool. Yeah.
And so then, I mean, in that time, we worked and went to school, and I still was having like identity issues. I was like, what am I doing? Like, who am I? Like, I don't even know what my purpose was. That's something I said for years, was like, I don't even know my purpose. Like, and I don't feel like, not complete, but like I don't feel like fulfilled. Like I just feel like I'm coasting. And I was like, well, this sucks. And so I got you're fine. Yeah. So we were just like working like so hard, and I was just like, I'm tired, and this is not the life I want to live. I don't want to live in an apartment my whole life, and I don't want to have to work insane hours and literally go from school to work. Like that's just not something that I want to do. And so then I got like that job opportunity, and we were like, and we talked because like we hadn't even been there a year. We lived there for 11 months. And Hunter was like, I was like, so I got a job opportunity. And he was just like, wow, okay, where? And I was like, well, Edmond, Oklahoma. And he was like, we're moving back. I was like, yeah. And so we both decided, he wasn't really happy where he was either. We were paying so much money for his school. It was so much money. And he was working like double what I was. So I was just like, I can't live like this. And like, we can't live like this. And so we moved back, and I changed my major again to sociology and human services, because I was like, I took a sociology class at MSSU, and I was like, this is interesting. And I looked more into it, and I was like, these are my passions. I was like, people are my passion. I was like, I love people. I love community service. When I was in high school, I did the typical build a house in Mexico thing. But like, it was more for me. I was like, giving myself like and my work to others was like what I wanted to do. So changed my major to sociology. I was president of GLA, what Laura was in. We became friends. And my boss, he was the most difficult boss I have ever had in my entire life. And the kicker was we were related.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, we weren't close, but like we were related. Like, I see you at Christmas, I see you at Thanksgiving. So that made things a little bit harder. And being married and having like that awesome support system that I had, it helped me gain like my confidence and like, again, to not like have people talk to me the way that I know that people shouldn't talk to me. And I didn't take a lot of crap. Oh gosh, I'm just like going through scenarios in my head and it's like, oh goodness. So yeah, so like Laura and I said at the beginning, like I wanted to run the organization that like I was the president of, and like my face was on it. And I was like, I am not about to let this down. And I was like, I want to be an organization that is accepting. And like, again, like I come from a small town in Oklahoma, and I was not grown up like diverse or anything. And like, I didn't know anything. And so I was like, you know what? I feel like my job as a human being is to allow myself to be educated and to learn more about others and allow them to tell their stories. So that's what I did. I provided, hopefully, I provided a space where people were comfortable with talking about their countries, their struggles they're going through. And it wasn't just like, our boss kind of wanted to work it as like a business or a workplace. And I was like, that's not what this is about. And you're kind of losing it. So I'm not going to let you do that. And he was very angry. And luckily me and the other, like the VP, we were on the same page. Exactly. I feel like we both had the same idea, and we're like, this is a space for people to enjoy what they do and to learn in the process. And that's exactly what we're going to do. So we butted heads with this guy. I worked for him for 2.5 years, and it just was awful.
Oh my goodness.
And apparently after me and the VP, we left, he apologized. And I was like, well, he didn't apologize to me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm confused. And it's funny, he apologized after I went above his head and told on him. I wrote down every single thing that he said to me that I had an issue with, every single thing he did to me that I had an issue with. And I was like, this is unacceptable. And not only unacceptable for us in the office, but other people can see it too. And that's not okay with me. And I was like, I do whatever you guys want as a department, but it's going to reflect on you.
Yeah.
And it was things like him wanting to have, it was all about power to him.
Yeah.
And him showing that he was the boss and everybody better know it. And I'm like, I'm the boss and people know it, but they don't, I mean, it's fine. Like, I would rather be a leader / follower than just a leader. And I, like, it was things like, he told us that, like, I'm 24, but you guys can't drink when, like, you guys go out. And I'm like, sir, you don't pay my bills. Like, you don't run my life. You're not my mom, you're not my dad. And I was like, that doesn't say it anywhere in the contracts. So I'm confused. And so then whenever I confronted him about it at the end of the year, and he got in trouble because I told on him for a list of things, and it wasn't even a list of things just from me. I got it from like 5 other people that made a list and sent it to the head director. And he looked me straight in the eye and he said, I never said that. And I was like, no, you did, but that's fine. It was the same thing. It was so funny because it was the same thing that I had dealt with my dad, with my in-laws. Like, I didn't do this. And I'm like, oh, but you did. So own up to it. And it was like the saddest sorry I have ever gotten. It was, hey, instead of going above my head, come to me. But I'll do better. And in my head, I'm like, I have come to you and that hasn't worked, man. Like, I don't know. Yeah. So that was an issue. And then, I mean, I quit after that because I only had, I think a semester left of school or a year left of school. Oh yeah, the pandemic hit and I was working through the pandemic the last semester, and I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this like online, like it's not for me. And it's time for me to move on and somebody else to come into this position. And so the pandemic hit and sorry, back up. So when I was in college, before I get into the pandemic, when I was in college, I got to UCO and I found out they provided free therapy, like mental health department. And I was like, So I was still going through like really bad depression from like my wedding and like everything that came right after it. And one day I had a full blown panic attack, like anxiety panic attack. And like I had them in high school. I only had like 1 or 2 in high school. I was pretty good at like, I don't know, making sure it didn't happen. Yeah. This was like, I could not breathe and I was shaking and crying. And I was just like, and I wasn't even thinking about the things that like made me stress out. It was just like things that were just like piling, and I exploded. And it was just like in the middle of the night. I literally woke up in the middle of the night and I was just like,
oh wow.
And Hunter was just like, are you dying? I was like, oh no. And I was just like, and he was so awesome. He was like, do you need to go see somebody? And I was like, I think so. And he was like, okay, like we'll get you there. And so the next day sometimes people's panic attacks only last like a certain amount of time. Mine lasted like a whole day. And like, I couldn't talk. And I was just like, I don't know what's going on. Like I'm shaking like this. And I go up to the mental health department and they're literally breaking for lunch. And I'm just like crying in front of them. And I was like, how do I make an appointment? And they were just like, oh my gosh, go to the front. And like, they were so helpful. So I made an appointment. I went to therapy every single Thursday for an entire year. And it was the best decision I ever made. And I remember the last day I was like kind of sad because like I came and I was like, and he was like, hey, what's up? And I was like, well, honestly, I don't really have anything to talk about. And he goes, oh. And he was like, so? And I was like, well, dang, I'm okay now. And so he was so helpful, never judged me once, was just so understanding, and like their department is amazing. And I was like, I got the help I needed, and if I didn't, I would be a totally different person. And so I told him literally everything that I just told you guys, and he was just like, okay, well, here's some tips and tricks to help you. And he was like, you're the one doing it. I'm just giving you the material. You're the one doing it. And I felt so much better. My anxiety like went down. My depression went down. I finished school. I have a degree in sociology and human services.
Yeah.
Woo! I graduated in December, so it's new. And like, I was so proud of myself. And like, even during the pandemic, I was like, you know what? Like, this is out of my control. And like, me being me, like, I want to control everything. And I'm like, I can't control this. I can only control like what I do. So I worked hard. I was a nanny for a little bit, worked with kids. I love them. I was actually an intern at the care center for a little bit during college. They work with children who are neglected and abused, and it is such an amazing organization. And currently I am a teacher at a private school. So I am having so much fun, and like kids are my passion, and like advocacy for mental health is my passion, and like I know who I am now, and I'm like, I don't need anybody else telling me who I am because I know who I am. So that is my story. Right now I'm just living it up, full-time job, married, and we're just doing it.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all this.
Yeah. Sorry it was so long, but that's my life.
And this is your journey. I honor that. Yeah,
for sure. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, go for it.
Yeah, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like I knew you, and now I'm like, wow, I did know
Yeah.
some of this stuff. I did not know all of
Yes,
that.
yeah. You
It's
knew,
a
yeah, you
lot.
definitely heard the little bits and pieces, but that is all of
Yeah.
me, and it's made me who I am, and I am appreciative of that. And even the really bad times, I'm like, you know what, happened for a reason, and I'm not going to let that ruin my life. So
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
Laura, I didn't know if you had any questions or.
Actually, you can go first, Jeff. I have a few,
Yeah.
I think, but I'm like,
Yeah.
that was
The
a
one,
lot.
actually,
That was a lot.
the one that really is most prominent for me is I get this sense. I remember when you were talking about, having this inner knowing that your parents were going to get divorced. I can't remember if you said you were 7 or 9. I can't remember
Oh yeah, yeah, I
what your
was
age
7.
was.
Yeah.
And that is, to me, that is the one, as I've been listening to this and really, being present with what you've been sharing. I do get this sense at different points. I feel like you have shared that, that you had this deep inner knowing.
Oh
And
yeah.
it really does sound to me like when you may have even called it intuition, but
Yeah.
that's really what spoke to me during this. And I was going to say, even when you were talking about yourself, I think it was 9, 10 or 11. And as you were a teenager, in your early teen years, that it sounded to me like you even knew then you had this inner sense of what was right and
Yeah.
wrong and a sense of who you were. I mean,
Mhm.
it really came through very, very strongly. And I don't feel like, with most people, I don't know at that age. I know I didn't have that clarity at that age for sure. So
Yeah.
I just really wanted to ask you if I was understanding this correctly. It really
Yeah,
does
for
sound
sure.
like you had this deep inner knowing.
Yeah, just as a kid, I go a lot off of gut feelings, and I've it sounds like really weird, but I can read people like a book. Like
Yeah.
the first 5 minutes I meet you, I'm like, I look at body language, I look at how you interact with me, I look at how you talk, and like that's why I think that's why I love sociology so much, is like I just learn about people, and like getting that education and knowing more, I'm like, oh, so I wasn't crazy.
Yeah.
Like all
Yeah.
that stuff matters, but just like at a young age, like especially body language, like any shift in like mood or vibes or anything, I'm like,
Yeah.
no.
Don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, but like
And
big feelings and stuff, and like I said, I grew up in the church and stuff, and I'm on my own journey with that.
Yeah.
And each to their own. I mean, I not to go into like this a lot, but like
Yeah.
it makes me so sad how like Christians nowadays are like pressuring people so hard, and I'm like, let them have their own journey. That is not your journey, that is theirs. So growing up in the church, people were like, oh well, that's spirituality, that's God, that's all this stuff, and I'm like, but what if it's like me? Like what if it's just like humans? Like I don't.
Yeah.
And you're like, you get condemned for asking questions, and I'm like, I'm the queen of asking questions. If I don't know something, I'm going to ask why. So yeah, just stuff like that. I feel like I have intuitive senses.
I really do honor that. That's actually the only question I had, but I really do honor that. It's and sometimes maybe I don't know if it's always a rational knowing, but sometimes it's just like you said, it's just a gut feeling.
Mm-hmm. And like when things don't feel right, like I will not do it. If people are like, oh, we'll just do it, I'm like, if I do not want to do it, I will not do it. Don't pressure me.
Yeah. I honor it. I really do. Yeah. Lauren, I'll turn it over to you, but thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. I did. Wow. Yeah. You went over so much. I'm like, I don't even know that I had any questions. I thought I did. I wrote like a bunch of stuff down, and I was like, no, you're just interesting. I think there was just a lot of things that like stuck out to me. I love that sometimes people need distance, how like sometimes it's just such few words and such little like things that people pass to you, and it's like I always kind of take those as like, this is my sign. Like it's not big, but it's because it sticks, so it's such a little thing that makes you think so differently. And then to hear your dad, and I hate even using, I don't think you use this word, but like to feel rejected by your own parents, that is definitely something that I've been through in my life, and I know how that shaped me. But then like to see you come out of it. And it's like you came out of it and like maybe you didn't know who you were, but you always knew, you know, this is what I stand for, this is what's right, this is what's wrong, and this is what I want. And even if you're gonna like kind of do some things that you're not sure about, you're still gonna do it the way that you want to do it. And I love that about you. How do you think that, I think my biggest question is like, in choosing sociology, do you think any of that, like, how do you think it played into you choosing that and choosing people and of course mental health, you know, the whole thing?
So honestly, I had not even heard of the word sociology until my sophomore year of college. And so I'm like, oh, I'm a little late, but that's okay. I was in Joplin at Missouri Southern State, and they were like, you can either take a psychology class or a sociology class. And I was like, what's sociology? And they were like, oh, it's just about people. And I was like, okay, like, sure. And it was so funny. Like, I literally just see myself sitting there and like I'm the only one who's like interested. I would like look around and it's like all these like athletes. Not saying all athletes do that, but it was like athletes and like people who didn't really care, and they were just
people
like,
sleeping through class. Yeah, got literally. It. Cool.
And I'm like,
college.
Oh, that's why people do that. And like I was going through my own mental health journey, like because this was right after I got married and all that stuff, and I was like, oh, well, that's why they did that. And that's why they did that in their past, and like that's why they did that. And I was like, I just love like asking questions and like, why do people do that? And so that's kind of why I picked sociology. And then I started learning like the kind of jobs you could have in sociology, and I was like, oh, that's what these people do. And so me going through my own journey with mental health, I was like, I feel like it would be a crime for me not to help others like this.
Yeah.
When I've been through this stuff, like I have to. So I felt just like in me, I was just like, I have to do it. Like I have no other desire to do anything else. And like growing up, I was like, and why I picked being a physical therapist, because it made money. You have a doctor in front of your name and you make money. And my parents are always the people who are like, pick a job you are going to enjoy the rest of your life. You could be making $3 an hour. I don't care, but pick a job you love, because at the end of the day, you're not going to be taking your money to the grave. So I really appreciated that. But I was just like, and like, it stinks because the mental health community doesn't make a lot of money. And I'm like, why? Like they are so needed. And like, it's crazy from like me being in high school, how it was like, you don't really talk about mental health. And then to me, literally going like 5 years later, I'm like, why is nobody talking about this? But luckily now, like the social media and like all that stuff, it's being advocated like for more, which I'm like, that's so awesome. And like, I would love for people to take advantage of that. And I'm like, I always say this is like my saying is like, even if you don't think you need therapy, you need therapy. Go. Even if your life is going jolly and you are the happiest you've ever been, go to therapy. Because you got something stored in that closet that you need to talk about.
Yeah. That was going to be my next question was, do you have any like go-to mental health advice? You just read my mind. Yeah, that's it. I completely agree. I've been in therapy actually the same amount of time. I started going when I was about 15 or 16. Mm-hmm. And I think it completely changed definitely like my emotional awareness and like how you're saying, you know, like being able to recognize boundaries. Now you're recognizing like, you know, you're recognizing patterns of the people that you're meeting. Like, okay, it was it was my dad, but actually it was also, now I'm seeing it in this boyfriend that you know, you could have just ended up with because you didn't know that was like not a thing. And so it's the most helpful thing I've ever been through. But
well, and it helps you like pick out signs and stuff of like sometimes things to avoid and sometimes things you're like, do I feel comfortable with this? And like go to therapy and be like, oh no, I don't. And like it's just a great outlet and like a neutral zone where you don't have people who know you give their opinions on what you should do. And that's one of the biggest things is like there's a difference between talking to your friends and talking to a therapist. I'm gonna say
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There is.
So even though I love my friends, I love them to death, but like and sometimes I'm like, that's not your burden to bear. Like, and they're like, oh, you can tell me anything. And I'm like, no, I can't.
Like I could, but also.
Yeah. But
no, I get that. Wow. I don't think I have any more questions for you.
This has been great. This has been great though. I'm so appreciative that Aleecia, that you shared all this, and just really, really honor your journey.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I mean, like I said, everybody has their own journey, and like for everybody, like don't judge other people's journeys. Like that's what they've been through, and they are the only people who know that. So that's all I've got.
Thank you so much. It was great to meet you. Appreciate it.
Of course. It's good to meet
Thank
you.
Aleecia. You're the best.